Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Meade.
And I'm Christy.
In this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, well, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out,
but actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose.
Hey Meade, how are you?
What's up?
How's everything going?
It's good. We're getting ready for all the things over here. The holiday season is upon us.
Oh, the things. I think probably when this airs, the holidays will be in our rear view.
We will have survived the holidays.
We will have survived the holidays. I thought that it would be fun today to talk about and this is actually a perfect one because if this is airing in January, all things being well, maybe you gals are doing a dry January or it's your first crack at staying alcohol free. And so I'm sure you get this question just as much as I do. What do we tell our girlfriends? What do we tell them?
Yes. What do we tell them when we are stepping into our alcohol-free life and we want to keep doing the things that we enjoy doing? And that's the beauty of this kind of methodology. And what we do is that you don't have to stop doing the things that you love doing. You can still go to the parties and still go to the social events. But as anything that is new and different, it takes, kind of having a prepping for it. Like, what are you going to say? Because people ask questions, right? Like, what are some of the questions, or how do people ask you? What do people say to you when they offer you a drink, or what are some of the responses you give?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it was very much like there was more pushback. And I really do believe that if you answer the question confidently, you get less pushback. Don't you think? So like in the beginning, I was like falling all over my words and I would say stuff, like, oh, I'm driving. But then you get, friends that are like, oh, well, you can leave your car here and get an Uber. Right?
Yes.
Did that happen to you too?
Yeah. So the times that I took the breaks before I found freedom from alcohol, for sure, it was like when I was in that place of wanting to drink, but not wanting to drink and trying to navigate that, it was really hard to come up with a reason that, that you could give that people wouldn't, to your point, kind of give that, pushback to. So having that plan, that confident, way of saying it is so good. But then once I found freedom from alcohol, I was the person that became I want to tell everybody about why I'm not drinking. I came out.
Yeah.
And I came out kind of preachy, and I do not recommend that at all. But it's like when you're excited about something that you've learned about, something you've discovered, this new way of living. I mean, it was so exciting to me. I wanted to share. So I love when people asked me. So there's a difference when you're alcoholic. We've talked about this before, a difference between being alcohol free maybe and still feeling some pull to alcohol, or being, having freedom from alcohol. And so I think different responses potentially even for both of those. So if we're just kind of stepping into that life of alcohol freeness, it's having that set, confident, I'm taking a break. I'm trying to see what it looks like to live without alcohol, see if I feel better. I'm not getting much sleep, or what were some of the other ones that you've heard or you've used?
Yeah, so I actually just did a post on this today, and so these are my favorite. That they're really good because you don't use an external circumstance like I'm driving or I'm on antibiotics or anything like that. Like nothing that you can leave open for someone to fight you on the actual circumstance, I guess, right? And the other thing too is as Christians, side note, I really just don't love the idea of lying. You know what I mean? Obviously. So there's so many people that are just say you're running a half marathon or something. And I'm like, that's not me. So these are some of my favorites. I'm taking a break. Alcohol doesn't make me feel good. I want to get a good night's sleep tonight. I'm focusing on my health at the minute. I realized I don't enjoy drinking. That's a good one. I'm done with hangovers. And
Amen.
yeah, I am much more relaxed when I don't drink. I think those are all really good ones. But like, let's be clear, exactly what you said. I came out hot too, and I came out so preachy. My very first social situation with like a bigger group of people was a barbecue, and I think I've told you this story before, but I got there and I literally started telling everybody that alcohol was going to get them cancer. And let me just tell you, that is not the way to make friends. And that is not the way to convince people that alcohol-free living is the way to go.
Yeah. It's the don't do what I did kind of thing. This is how we know that it doesn't work. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But what was when you said you got like loud and preachy, what did you do? Tell me what you did.
It was just, I mean, I've done this with other things. I can think about, like, there was a time that I was really into these like protein shakes, these meal replacement protein shakes. And it was the same kind of like, I wanted everybody to know about them because they were amazing. They helped me, have more energy. So I thought, and I felt better. And when you feel better, I think that also, shows in how you show up. And so, I liken it to like that time. Like I get passionate about things that I'm excited about and wanting to share that. Yeah. So it really comes from a loving place. And also I had felt so, I felt kind of duped. Like, how did I not know about how did I not know that alcohol is ethanol and ethanol is what we put in our gas tanks? How did I not know that? And so it's one of those, like, from that discovery standpoint, it's like, oh my gosh, like people need to know this because I didn't know. And I would want to know, but when you're at I was free from alcohol December 1st, 2nd of 2019. So going into so I had these holiday parties. So I had lots of practice with my favorite thing is to say, like, someone's like, do you want to drink? Is to say, yes, I'll have or no, I've got my own. I was good about bringing my own stuff. Groovy makes a really good dry secco that is delicious. And so I ordered those and I would take those to things. And so it was an easy way to just say, no, I've got my own. If people asked what I was drinking, then I would tell them. And eventually it got to being able to say, just like, it's not, alcohol doesn't serve me anymore. I'm much happier without it. But I think the prepping, knowing what you hit on exactly, like the confidence in what you're saying and being able to, say whatever you want to say. Like, I'm not a fan of personally, like, lying, but do whatever you want to say. Just have a plan for what it is. And I think that helps a lot as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. And I think that, as you get more confident, that's what I was going to ask you. How long do you think it was for you where you went from like kind of like, I don't know if the right word is floundering. I certainly felt like I was floundering, floundering to confident. Like what do you think that time frame looked like for you?
Gosh, that's a good question. I don't know. It was definitely several months of being, just repetition, just like with anything else. The more we practice, the easier it gets. But what I didn't realize was how coming out so hot, like wanting to tell everybody about this, that definitely put a little bit of distance for a little while. There was a time, and that was an opportunity for me to be like, oh wait, okay, like what's happening here? And then kind of come up with a new angle, which was, the more like, alcohol doesn't serve me anymore. I could drink right now if I want to, but I don't want to. Without desire, there's no reason to drink. And so it was a more organic, kind of thing. And eventually it's, people just know now, and it's fine. But it is interesting. This is what I think is so interesting, is that, you can tell somebody that you're not eating gluten, or you've cut out dairy, and it's nobody really thinks twice about it. But when it comes to saying you're taking a break from alcohol, or you're free from alcohol, or you don't you don't drink. When I say I don't drink, people look at me like, wait, what do you mean you don't drink? I can say it proudly now, for there was a time where I was a little more unsure about it. I wasn't as confident. What about you? How long did it take?
Yeah, after I asked you that question, I was trying to think of the answer for myself. And I don't know. Like, I feel like a lot happened for me, and I don't want to freak anybody out because I know a year sounds like really long, but I think a lot like fell into place for me in a year. I don't know why. It was just for me arbitrarily somehow, like making it like a year, being really like still not having the desire at a year. I definitely like found my stride, and I noticed that like when I would be at a restaurant, I would order so much differently. Like I would confidently, without even thinking of it, be like, I will have this mocktail. Whereas before I would get a little bit like flustered of like, is another girl at the table going to say something? But I think that just when you get really, really confident in your decision, and too, the tides are turning. They are changing. Like I don't think that when I first, I don't think I know that when I first moved to England 15 years ago, there weren't mocktails on the menu, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember the first time I saw an alcohol-free wine. It was an alcohol-free Prosecco on a menu in a kind of like a remote little kind of bed and breakfast in place that I just would, like I would expect it in town in Atlanta and some of the, city bars or restaurants, but at this little remote, and I was like, and this was, I think 2020 or 2021. I was like, wow, this really is, starting to reach other places where it's pretty standard now to have a mocktail kind of list on things.
Yeah.
I think at this point.
Yeah. And I always tell my clients too, like, just if you're like, it doesn't hurt to check the menu beforehand, and like, if you can, like so many places have their menus online. And if that's an option, like I did that in the beginning too, where like I knew what mocktail I was going to order. So it took all of the pressure off. And then I always had some sort of backup, right? I always had a cranberry juice with sparkling water, soda water, whatever, and a lime. And so it was like a very easy, if there was nothing on the menu, like something to say.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting how like when I was drinking, how I would never have ordered a cocktail. I was always the wine. I would go straight to the wine list. But now I look forward to even if there's not a mocktail list, I look forward to looking at the cocktail list and creating my own without alcohol. And then a lot of times I just cut whatever it is with soda water. And that gives, if you're interested in, trying something new or different and, having that kind of fun and exploring a beverage that has all the benefits of, the good sleep that comes from it and, and everything else. That's been a fun way for me to do it. And so now I've kind of like landed on if there's a mule on the menu, that's where, even if it's not technically a mocktail, I just tell them to hold the liquor and add some soda water. And
what is it, a mule again? I forgot.
It's ginger beer.
Okay, that's right.
This is a funny. Oh my gosh, this is a funy story. So when
we have a mule story, ladies and gentlemen.
We do. It just came to me as I was saying this when you asked me what it was. So we went out to dinner with some friends, and this is right when I was like, okay, like these mules are good. That virgin mules, I can do this. And the first time I ordered it, it said ginger beer, and I told the guy, I was like, but replace the ginger beer with something because no alcohol. And he was like, so what do you want? And I was like, well, no, like I don't drink alcohol, and so like no liquor, no ginger beer, and I mean it was pretty laughable. And then I'm like, oh, ginger beer doesn't have alcohol. See, I'm learning something new. Like, it's like root beer, right? Like in that category. But I was trying to, honor that I didn't want to drink alcohol. And so therefore I wanted to, sometimes I would, early on get nervous that the bartender would mix up if I was ordering a mocktail, they would mix it up and forget and put liquor. And, more than just like, I didn't want to smell that. I don't want to mix that up. But, so it was pretty funny.
Yeah. I've had that happen where, actually, like, I go like, with a group of girlfriends, and I used to love a margarita because of the spice and the salty spice combination. Anyways, so I'll go out with these girls and they'll get normal ones, and I'll always ask if they can do a virgin one. And now there are tequila replacements, which is awesome. And if you guys haven't tried Clean Co, I think Clean Co is now in the US, but it's a guy over here in the UK who's actually on Made in Chelsea. But anyways, he started it. It's really good. So some of the like nicer bars and restaurants have that here. Where was I going with the story? Okay, yes. So we'll order like 2 regulars and a virgin, and they bring it. And it's a testament to how much I don't want it in my life. I'm like, everybody make sure that this is the one that without alcohol. Everyone drink this. I do not want it in my life.
Well, because I mean, the smell of it is so strong now to me that it really, I mean, we would know, right? Like if it wasn't, but it's just, I don't even want to have it up near my nose anymore. It's so strong. It's amazing how your senses are so much stronger when you don't drink. That's something that I find to be just an amazing benefit in a good way when it comes to taste buds and things like that, enjoying meals. But it's, I'm like, gosh, how long, 20-some years, I would not have been able to really, I never paid attention to, or my senses were dulled enough that I didn't notice. Right. And so, I totally get that.
Yeah. It's so true. I actually found an old bottle of Casamigos, which was my tequila, like above the kitchen refrigerator or something somewhere recently. And I went, and it didn't have very much left. And so I went to like dump it out. Not that I would have kept it anyways, but I went to dump it out. And even dumping it into the sink, I was like,
yes. Yes. This is a question I have. I don't know what your take is on this, but do you serve alcohol at your house? Like, so if you're, having a holiday party or whatever, do you serve alcohol? How do you handle that?
Yeah, such a good question. So I've done an Easter, I've done a couple baby showers, and you know what? My ideas and my thoughts about whether or not I serve have definitely changed over time.
Yeah.
And to be 100% honest, I don't know exactly where I'm landing right now. We're about to have a Christmas party with a bunch of friends. Like a couple non-drinkers, but mostly drinkers. And I was actually thinking of saying, like, on the invitation, bring your own wine. But I don't know, I'm wrestling with it. Like, as someone that loves to host, like, is that being a bad hostess? I actually don't know the answer to this, Meade. The jury's still out. I think knowing everything that I know about the health risks of alcohol, it's so hard for me to watch people that I love dearly with all of my heart drink it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, jury's still out on this one. What do you think?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just like you. I think it's evolved over time to where in the beginning, I almost enjoyed the freedom that I felt in being able to serve my guests like whatever they wanted. And the complete, it was just like more, proof for me that I truly was free from alcohol, that I could serve it to them and not even think twice about it. And so early on, for sure, I was fine with buying it and serving it. I mean, I definitely, did not have the plethora. Like it wasn't frantic trying to make sure I had it, like I would have if I had been drinking it, but I had something to offer people. But now it's definitely evolved to where people know that if they want to drink something, you are more than welcome to bring whatever you want to drink, but I won't be serving it just because, I mean, I'm like, I want to benefit from the cost savings. Number one, that I don't have to buy, like one of the great things is I don't have to spend that money anymore. And then number two, it's, and the bigger piece, what you just hit on, it's that knowing it is, how toxic it is. And it just is something for me where I I don't want to contribute to that personally, but no judgment. Like if you're drinking around me, if you want to bring wine to my house or have a drink at my, like you do you. I just don't want to be the one kind of offering it anymore.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is really hard. It is really hard. And I guess it goes back to like all of these things that we're talking about of it just being so societally ingrained in us that it belongs at some sort of party. And so therefore, if you're not as the hostess serving it, like, are you not somehow giving the guests like the proper full experience? And like, I know in my heart that like, you don't need alcohol to have a good party. So yeah, I mean, I'm just like kind of coaching myself here through this, but I don't really know. It's really interesting. We should come back to this after I have this Christmas party and see what I end up doing. Yeah.
Well, and I was thinking too, like you said, like, am I being a bad hostess? And you think about like, well, what is a bad hostess? Like a good hostess, in my opinion, is someone who comes from a loving, open-handed, generous place who, wants to break bread with people, wants to be connected to people, wants to serve them through offering them, food and beverage. And this is kind of just, happening live too, but it's the idea of like, what's the most loving thing I can do for someone is to offer them, something within what I'm comfortable providing, but that doesn't mean that that might be different for somebody else. Like, I think that's a place for exploration for anybody is like, how am I what kind of a hostess do I want to be? And what kind of qualifies that, for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's another really good one that's like kind of along the same lines. When you go out with girlfriends and everybody is drinking and you're not, do you have them take alcohol off the bill?
Absolutely. I pay separately. Yes, absolutely. One of the benefits of being free from alcohol is I don't have to pay for that anymore. And so, yes, I do. But I have also learned the really hard way with that it absolutely can create a stink. It can be people can feel judged. I get it, but it's also, so I've learned that when I'm going out with a group of girlfriends, I'm going to have cash myself and I'm going to pay, like I'm going to have I usually ask for just a separate ticket. And then that way I'm, just doing my thing and everybody else is splitting the rest of it. What do you do?
Yeah. I mean, I've done a variety of things at this point. Like I have a one like girlfriend and she's one of my like closest friends. Anytime she's at a table and it doesn't matter if it's 3 women or 50, she'll be like, okay, separate checks this person. And she'll sit there with her calculator and she will insure. So I'm like so blessed to have her as a friend. Sometimes though, like in London, the mocktails are just as much as the cocktails. So in that case, if I'm ordering like an $18, 16 pound, whatever cocktail, I won't say anything. But yeah, it's so interesting. It all comes back, both the hostess question and this question come back to why are we so concerned and wrapped up in what other people think? Right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. And where do we find that confidence and I think it is in that kind of going inward and getting really clear for yourself, like what aligns for you with your integrity in those situations. I will say this is probably annoying for people that have been with me before, but when a restaurant charges me the cocktail price, when I've asked for the mocktail or said hold the liquor, and I make them take it back, and I'm like, I'm not paying for like there's no alcohol in this. I know that's
in there.
So you can charge me the soda price, right? Like, and I know that's annoying. It's probably embarrassing for some people who are with me, but I don't care. I'm like, I'm not paying $18 for
soda water and a garnish. Yeah.
And a lot of restaurants and bars, like where they're making their money is off of the liquor because it is so marked up. But yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. So what do you normally tell clients that come to you and are like, this is one of their main pain points is I am so scared to tell friends that I am on a break or have decided not to drink for a little bit or whatever their deal is. Like what do you tell them?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's where it's kind of getting really clear on how, like what the situation is and how you can prep for it ahead of time, whether, like you said earlier, looking up the menu ahead of time and picking, going ahead, which is something, by the way, that I like to do. I've always liked to do. I always look at menus ahead of time because I love to see what the food offerings are. And it used to be, I like to check out what wine I was going to have ahead of time. So I still do that. So I would say, like, going into a situation where you're unsure, whatever you can do to prep for that is good. And then also, like, visualization is one of my favorite tactics for any unknown or new or first time a thing that you're experiencing AF, is the idea of visualization. So like picture yourself from start to finish, like what are you wearing? What are you ordering? Who's there? What's happening? And like Michael Phelps does when he trains with broken goggles or fogged up goggles or no goggles, and therefore is an event and is not, not thrown off by that if that happens. Same kind of thing for these situations where, kind of knowing ahead of time what you're gonna order, what you're going to say to people if they ask you, having that confident response, and then also visualizing like what are those potential things that that could come up that, as long as your brain is familiar with visualization is great because your brain is already familiar with this happening. And so it gives that, it doesn't cause the panic in the moment. So those would be my suggestions for sure.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I definitely am really, really into the whole making a plan thing and visualizing and everything you said. I think it's so incredibly helpful. I also think it's so helpful, and it was very helpful for me to remind myself that if there is, first of all, two things. First is that we make it a bigger deal than it normally ends up being anyway. A lot less people actually care whether you're not drinking or not. We make it a lot bigger in our head, like story. We make up the stories of what it's going to be like, and it ends up like normally 99.9% of the time not being that big of a deal. But the 0.1% person is always the person who, you hold up a mirror, right? And this is what really helped me is like the people that get really mouthy about me not drinking are the people that by me not drinking, it's setting off alarm bells in them, and they're thinking, oh, Christy's taking a break. Holy guacamole, does that mean I have to take a break? And then because of the society we live in, I have to take a break equals I'm an alcoholic, equals I have a problem, equals I have to label myself, equals I have to go to meetings for the rest of my life, et cetera, right? So it really helped me. And then I saw it, and there was a handful of people, and they did that. And normally it really sounds like, they'll get defensive about their own drinking. And then my favorite thing is when they tell you what a good drinker they are. So when they're like, I drink, but I also am in the head of the PTA and I am a kick-ass XYZ as my job. And I am doing all the things and I'm a superstar mom and I never miss soccer practice. And I'm like, okay, I didn't ask. Like you get a gold medal for being a gold medal drinker, but like it has nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? Has that happened to you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Those are two such good, really, really, really good points because it is that whole kind of mirror phenomenon because also I was the person doing that at
me too.
times before I found freedom from alcohol. I was the person that, the number one thing, well, it's funny. I remember the shift and I'm like, wait, am I too old now? Is that why people don't assume that I'm pregnant? Well, for the longest time, when you say you're not drinking, the automatic assumption is that you're pregnant. I've been called out on it before when I was legit pregnant. But it is that, having been the person who was like, wait, why aren't you drinking? Like, what do you mean you're not drinking? And feeling I mean, there were times that I felt disappointment that one of my girlfriends or several of my girlfriends, whoever I was with at the time, if they were taking a break or if they were pregnant and not drinking, I felt disappointment that they wouldn't be drinking with me. And so I mean, it's hard to admit that, but it's true. And
I felt this.
I take full
100%.
responsibility for it. And so I can see where that ends up being that kind of mirror for somebody else who maybe is questioning their own drinking or is super attached to drinking and what that looks like. And so therefore someone saying, I'm not drinking, and maybe the comparison does come in like, well, gosh, if Meade thought she had a problem and needed to not drink, then maybe, wow, what does that say about my drinking? And I think that also just goes back to human nature, that most of us are thinking about ourselves. We think that other people are thinking about us or making judgments of us or, whatever. And they may at times, but most people are really, it's like, okay, how does this affect me? What does this have to do with me? And so, so that I think is super helpful that was early days. That was super helpful in me realizing that like any pushback I got came from a place potentially of someone who was feeling threatened by that mirror that I, wasn't drinking and what it maybe meant for them.
Yeah. Totally. We had a wild and wacky, just drink through this whole summer. I want to say maybe that was summer of 2019. Yeah. And we got back to London after being in the States, and my one girlfriend who was with me for part of the trip, she's one of my closest friends. She said, I'm going to do sober September. And I was so mean to her. And it was also her birthday during September. So I was like, what do you mean you're not going to drink on your birthday? Like, that's going to be unfun. And I did all that. I did all of it. And it 100% came from a place of, I thought, oh my gosh. First of all, I was kind of, upset that I wouldn't have a drinking partner. I wouldn't have someone that was drinking at my level, all these other things. And I've gone back and I apologized. I've apologized, and I've also asked her to permission to share this story because I do share it a lot. But I gave her a really, really hard time because I was scared. And so I think that if anyone that's listening to this podcast, if anybody is listening to this podcast, if you can remember that, if you do have a girlfriend that gives you a hard time, it actually has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them and how they're framing your decision, which is ultimately about your own health and well-being with their own stuff. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's where offering, compassion, if possible, I think that is a place where, kind of diminish the hostility that I would naturally feel for somebody who's giving me pushback about something I'm excited about or confident or, want to share. And that compassion for kind of knowing what it feels like to be in that spot and thinking that it comes from a place and knowing what we know through the work that we do, that it is a very fear-based kind of response. And so it does point back to something in them that feels maybe insecure about this in whatever way that looks for them. So I think that's where also I'm able to offer compassion, if not initially, eventually, for any kind of negativity that's given in response to me not drinking. And I didn't know what I didn't know then, and they don't know what they don't know. And I think it also goes back to, we get this question a lot, right? How I'm so excited about my freedom from alcohol life. And I want to share this with people. And so kind of similarly, not just how do we answer questions about, us not drinking when we're out, and how our culture has, created this environment for it to be weird to be a non-drinker, right? So similarly, thinking about, we get this question a lot of I am excited about this and I want to be able to share this with people I love. And so how do I do it so that I'm not preaching, I'm not coming out hot and making people uncomfortable? And, this is what I have learned through my own personal experience. Showing and not saying is the best way for us to help loved ones, help friends. If, people don't take advice that they're not asking for. So
100%.
Just kind of really, again, going back to that, like going inward and inwardly focusing on what is right for you and being confident in that for you. The outflow from that space, that the potential for influence is great. I mean, I've had multiple friends find freedom from alcohol since I did, not because I coached them. I didn't even know that they, were working on this, but, months later have come to me and said, hey, by the way, listen to this. Like, I found freedom from alcohol because I watched what you did. And and I think that's something to consider as well. What
totally.
About you?
Yeah. So good. So good. Yeah. Same. And I think I got really loud on my Instagram, on my personal Instagram before I started the coaching thing. And I had so many friends just, ask questions about it, like, and questions from girlfriends from like literally junior high school, and people that I had, like, all the seasons of my life were asking questions. And then, I wasn't necessarily like coaching. At that point, it was in the very, very beginning. It was really in the beginning. I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, I remember getting on like an Instagram story and I was like, you guys, I went out to dinner last night and I didn't drink, and I laughed, and it was amazing. And like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this was possible. And so exactly what you said is just like show, not tell. 100%. And then the same thing happened. Like, I one of my really good girlfriends, like, just stopped, and I didn't even really know it until I went to her house for a dinner party. And she's like, oh, I stopped drinking. Like, it's so awesome. And I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't you text me? And she's like, I didn't want to make it a big deal. And I'm like, well, it is a big deal. It's amazing. you know? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's where it comes. Yeah. Again, like coming back to this theme of, feeling good about what aligns with our integrity. And that's where we also are less worried about what other people are thinking. And when you are showing up as, truly like blissfully, joyfully not drinking, and people notice the changes. I know, I love I know the changes that I have made, and I love hearing when people notice the difference, and that just speaks volumes to, I'm not an anti-alcohol evangelist by any means. Like, if it works for you, like whatever works for you is fine. But also I love being able to share what I've learned, because there was a long time that I did, 20 some years, I had no idea. And if you can help someone get unstuck from the misery that is being stuck in that cycle, I'm happy to help. But yeah.
And also too, it's like all it kind of takes is one in your group. So like, I'm sure this has happened to you too, where like you'll coach someone that comes to you with this exact worry of like, what do I tell my girlfriends? Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous to like, go into social situations and not drink. And then because they're brave and because they turn down the alcohol, they open the door, right? And they open the door for somebody else to question. And then that person is like, oh my gosh, like, oh, you're not drinking? Like, in a good way, not in a like, how we used to like, light people on fire for saying they were taking a break from alcohol, but like in a good way of like, oh, what's that like? What does that mean? Does it, and then you really do end up doing such an amazing service to your friends, because you're taking away all this stigma that we're talking about of it being weird.
That is so true. And all it takes is one person for, I hear those stories all the time, and I see it too. It's that idea that like, you may be miserably drinking, but who else in your circle may also be miserably drinking, but they're scared to do anything about it too. And so it takes one person being that kind of rebels, quote, with the air quotes, the rebel of the group, doing something differently, and what that offers for everybody else is tremendous. We make a lot of assumptions about the fact that like, I'm the only one that is miserable in this drinking cycle. And so nobody else is worried about this. Nobody else is dealing with this. Nobody else is frustrated with this, and nobody else is trying to figure out what to do about this. But I'm not so sure that that is true or was true for me. I just happened to be the first one in my circle that actually was like, enough is enough. I've got to find a better way. So who knows, you know, we make a lot of assumptions, but again, going back to our stories, we've got to check those stories and call them out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. It's so true. It's one of the things that, you know, other people, I think, is probably, if I'm thinking back to what held me, or like, I guess, kept me stuck the most, it was definitely one of them, is other people. And so I think just the fact that we're having this conversation and that we can hopefully offer some encouragement to anybody listening that like, it's possible, it ends up being such an incredible thing that you can, you know, affect change in your friends in such a good way, that it's actually not that big of a deal, that we're making it so much more in our heads. And like we said in the beginning, just like planning, doing a good visualization exercise, checking the menu, all of these things are so helpful. And then I think just repetition, I think we said that, but like repetition of just, it probably is going to feel funky the first few times. And it's, you know, it'll feel funky with different people. Oh, this is a good one I was going to say. Sometimes I offer this as a homework assignment to my friends, not my friends, my coachees, my clients that are really struggling with the other people, girlfriends thing. And I just say, listen, pick one trusted friend. Pick one trusted friend that maybe is your best friend or whatever it is, but someone that you really care about, and go to dinner. Go to dinner and just practice.
Yes.
Right?
Get that rep under your belt. Yep.
Get the rep under your belt, and then do it with two people, you know, and you don't have to necessarily go into the Christmas party or whatever party and announce, you know, and start preaching like to everybody like we did. But,
like we did.
Yeah. You guys, everyone learn from our mistakes, please.
We can tell you what to do based on what we did and how it blew up terribly. I love that, because I love what Annie says about this too. I've heard her explain it this way, like these alcohol-free firsts, and that's why I love when you mentioned earlier that it took like about a year for you to feel kind of confident, because like a year gives you that chance to kind of go on that AF vacation, you know, first AF vacation, first maybe AF wedding, first dinner out, whatever it is, birthday, all of those things. Maybe, hopefully not, but maybe some kind of tragedy, you know, being able to go through that AF, that year time gives you that opportunity. But, you know, it's 90, she said this once, it's 90% hard on all the first times.
Yeah.
But after that, it's like 20% hard, maybe, if that.
Yeah, I remember her saying that too. Yeah, so good.
It's just that it's new and it's different. And another kind of tool I like to give people as well is when they're going into these, you know, so say you have a holiday party coming up, or you're in dry January and you're like, I've got this, you know, dinner, like using the like kind of experiment mindset or scavenger hunt, cheesy, corny, whatever, scavenger hunt mentality of, you know what, I know what this event looks like drinking. I've done that a million times. Like I knew what vacation drinking looked like. I hadn't ever been on vacation without alcohol before. I knew what that looked like. But it was really exciting to go into a vacation alcohol free with this like blank canvas and this kind of like curiosity mindset of like, what can I find in this experience alcohol free that I get to experience that if I was drinking, I wouldn't be able to find and I wouldn't be able to experience. And so I also offer that as a way of creating a little bit of, if you're feeling nervous about going to the dinner or the event or whatever it is, you know, make it a scavenger hunt. I'm going to find 3 things tonight that I get to experience that I wouldn't have otherwise if I'd been drinking. And that helps kind of focus the mind and takes that kind of nervousness and channels it into kind of more anticipation and excitement. And when you feel better, you create better outcomes. So, so cheesy scavenger hunt for the win. Who doesn't love a good scavenger hunt, right?
It's so good. And it's not actually that difficult to come up with things to think about discovering, because normally they're all the things that we actually enjoy about like going to said event, right? So like it's the food, it's the music, it's all these things that you get to enjoy that normally get numbed out, blurred out, like dumbed down, all those things when you're drinking. So it's also just such a good opportunity to like realize like what's fun for you and what's not. And oh my gosh, we could go on and on, but we're already like going to wrap this episode up. But you know, like it's just so good. I love it. I love that tip. That's awesome. Awesome.
Yes,
so good.
Girl. So fun.
Such a good chat. Such a good chat. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. You can find all of our episodes at butjesusdrankwine.com, and make sure you follow us over on the gram at butjesusdrankwine.
To learn more about what we do, you can visit our websites at meadhollandshirley.com and lovelifesober.com.
Take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with a friend or two.
And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you don't have to worry about missing a single episode. And if you love what we're doing, please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify.
This helps more women who are feeling stuck and alone in the overdrinking cycle to find hope and encouragement.
Thanks, ladies. We so appreciate you. We'll see you next week.